Imagine the late 1970s. The golden rule of motorsport was brutally simple. If you want to win, you need more horsepower. Engineers built massive engines and sent all that explosive power to the rear wheels. It was the era of rear-wheel drive. But this philosophy had a fatal flaw. You can have 1,000 horsepower, but it is absolutely useless if your tires cannot grip the road. When the rain fell or the snow covered the tracks, these powerful monsters turned into helpless, spinning bricks. The limit of speed wasn't the engine, it was the physics of friction. In physics, there is a concept called the calm circle. It dictates that a tire only has a limited amount of grip to share between accelerating, braking, and turning. If you send 100% of a massive engine's power to just 2 rear wheels, you instantly exceed that limit. The tires break traction, and you lose control. For decades, the automotive world accepted this as an unbreakable law of nature. 4-wheel drive existed, of course, but it was heavy, clumsy, and strictly reserved for military trucks and tractors. No one in their right mind would put it in a fast sports car, until a small group of German engineers decided to cheat physics. In 1980, the Geneva Motor Show was turned upside down. Audi unveiled the Quattro. It didn't have the biggest engine, and it looked like a sharp, practical coupe. But beneath its skin lay an unfair advantage. Audi figured out how to split the engine's power and send it to all 4 wheels simultaneously without adding massive weight. By dividing the horsepower across 4 tires instead of 2, they essentially doubled their circle of grip. When the Quattro hit the rally stages, it wasn't just a competition anymore. It was an execution. While the rear-wheel drive cars danced on the ice, fighting for their lives, the Audi clawed into the frozen earth like a predator. The era of pure horsepower was dead. The era of grip had begun. Let's look closely at the physics of acceleration. When a powerful car hits the gas, the laws of inertia force the weight of the vehicle to violently shift backwards. The front tires become light, while the rear tires are crushed into the asphalt. For a brief moment, you get maximum grip. But there is a physical limit. If your engine produces 400 horsepower, and you force all of it through just 2 patches of rubber the size of a human hand, the friction breaks down. The tire simply rips itself apart against the asphalt, turning your power into useless smoke. And if you add water or ice between the rubber and the road, that limit drops to almost 0. So, if 2 wheels can't handle the power, why didn't engineers just use 4? Because of weight and physics. In the 1970s, 4-wheel drive systems were built for military trucks and off-road vehicles. They required a massive, heavy piece of iron called a transfer case, placed right in the middle of the vehicle. This heavy box split the power between the front and rear axles. Putting a traditional transfer case into a lightweight, aerodynamic sports car was automotive suicide. It would add hundreds of kilograms, ruin the center of gravity, and consume all the space inside the cabin. Engineers believed that the physics of 4x4 were fundamentally incompatible with the physics of speed. But in the winter of 1977, a revelation happened. Audi engineers were testing their new, powerful front-wheel drive sedans in the deep snows of Finland. Accompanying them was a support vehicle, a small, ugly, and incredibly slow military jeep called the Volkswagen Iltis. It had a pathetic 75 horsepower. Yet while the powerful Audi sedans were helplessly getting stuck in the snowbanks, spinning their wheels, the little 75 horsepower military jeep drove circles around them with absolute ease. Audi's chassis engineer, Jörg Benzinger, watched this and had a pure eureka moment. He realized that a fraction of the horsepower with 100% of the grip will always beat massive power with zero grip. The idea was born. What if they could steal the grip of a military jeep and put it inside a high-speed sports car? After the revelation in the snow, Audi engineers began working in absolute secrecy. They took a standard front-wheel drive Audi 80 prototype and started cutting. The goal was simple: take the unbeatable traction of the military jeep and shove it under a civilian car. This prototype was codenamed A1, and on dirt or snow, it was an absolute monster. But there was a massive problem. The military 4x4 system was crude. It locked the front and rear axles together with a solid steel shaft. On a muddy battlefield, this is exactly what you need. But a sports car isn't built for the battlefield. When they took the prototype onto dry pavement, the car fought back. To understand why the car was fighting, we have to look at the physics of turning. When a car takes a corner, the outside wheels travel a much longer distance than the inside wheels. This means the wheels must spin at different speeds. But the military four-wheel drive system didn't allow this. It forced all four wheels to spin at the exact same velocity. Because the tires couldn't slip on the dry pavement, they hopped, skipped, and dragged across the road. This created immense rotational tension, known as drivetrain windup. The mechanical stress was so violent that it was literally tearing the drivetrain apart from the inside. On dry pavement, the military system was destroying itself. The engineers realized they needed a mechanism to let the front and rear axles spin independently. They needed a center differential. Adding a center differential sounds simple on paper, but in reality, it was an engineering nightmare. A traditional center differential from that era was the size of a watermelon and weighed a ton. Furthermore, the traditional 4x4 layout required power to go from the engine back to the middle of the car, and then required a secondary, heavy drive shaft to return the power back to the front wheels. There simply was no physical space under the sleek, aerodynamic Audi coupe. If they raised the car to fit the gears, they would ruin the center of gravity and destroy its handling. The Audi board of directors was losing patience. The project was at a dead end. Physics said you could not fit a complex four-wheel drive system into a low-slung passenger car. That is, until an engineer named Franz Tengler looked at a solid piece of metal and had an incredibly simple yet crazy idea. To build a true all-wheel drive sports car, Audi had to solve a geometric nightmare. In a traditional 4x4 system, the power from the engine travels back to a transfer case, which sits in the middle of the vehicle. From there, you need a long, heavy metal drive shaft to send the power all the way back to the front wheels. But the Audi coupe was low, sleek, and aerodynamic. There was simply no physical space under the floor for a bulky secondary drive shaft to run back to the front axle. If they lowered the shaft, it would scrape the asphalt. If they raised the floor, there would be no room for the driver's legs. They were trapped by the laws of space and volume. They needed a way to send the rotational power to the rear and to the front simultaneously from the exact same point in space without using two separate parallel shafts. And then, transmission engineer Franz Tengler looked at a solid steel gear shaft and asked a revolutionary question. What if the shaft was empty inside? The solution was a masterpiece of mechanical engineering. It was called the hollow shaft. Instead of using a solid piece of steel for the main transmission output shaft, Tengler drilled a hole straight through the center of it, making it essentially a thick steel pipe. This is where the magic of physics comes in. He took the power coming from the engine and sent it backwards through this outer hollow shaft into a compact center differential. Then, the differential split the power. It sent half of it to the rear wheels. But how to get the other half to the front wheels without a second bulky drive shaft? Tengler took a second, thinner solid shaft and slid it directly inside the hollow one. The outer pipe spun the power to the back. The inner rod, spinning freely inside the pipe, carried the power to the front. Two shafts, occupying the exact same physical footprint. It was a mechanical nesting doll. The invention of the hollow shaft changed everything. Because they no longer needed a massive separate transfer case, engineers could integrate the center differential directly into the back of the standard Audi gearbox. The entire four-wheel drive system became incredibly compact and astonishingly light. While traditional 4x4 systems added hundreds of kilos, Audi's Quattro system added only about 75 kilograms to the total weight of the car. More importantly, it allowed Audi to keep the floor of the car completely flat and aerodynamic. The weight was perfectly centralized, giving the car a devastatingly low center of gravity. They had done the impossible. They had taken the unstoppable traction of a heavy military vehicle and compressed it into the elegant, lightweight package of a high-speed coupe. The blueprint for the ultimate weapon was complete. Now, it was time to give this weapon a heartbeat. Audi had the perfect all-wheel drive system, but now they needed an engine to match. However, they faced a strict spatial constraint. Because the Quattro system required the engine to be mounted longitudinally, pointing front to back, right over the front axle, a long engine would ruin the car's balance. A standard four-cylinder engine was compact, but it lacked the prestige and the raw power needed to crush the competition. A straight-six engine produced beautiful, smooth power, but it was physically too long. It would stick out too far forward, acting like a pendulum and making the car handle like a nose-heavy pig. So, the engineers did something highly unusual. They metaphorically cut one cylinder off a 6, creating an inline 5-cylinder engine. It was the absolute perfect compromise. Short enough to fit without destroying the handling, but large enough to deliver massive power. But a 5-cylinder engine is structurally asymmetrical. To stop it from vibrating and shaking itself to pieces, engineers had to master the physics of firing orders. In a traditional engine, cylinders fire in even, predictable intervals. In Audi's inline 5, the ignition fires every 144 degrees of crankshaft rotation in a very specific, carefully calculated sequence. 1, 2, 4, 5, 3. This overlapping power delivery creates an incredibly smooth flow of torque. But more importantly, it created an acoustic signature that became legendary. Because of the odd number of cylinders and the unique firing intervals, the exhaust pulses combine in a bizarre way. It creates a deeply resonant, offbeat growl. It doesn't scream like a high-revving Ferrari, and it doesn't rumble like an American muscle car. It sounds like an angry, mechanical beast clearing its throat. It is a true symphony of odd numbers. The 5-cylinder engine was brilliant, but to dominate the brutal world of Group B rally racing, natural aspiration wasn't nearly enough. They needed forced induction. Audi attached a massive KKK turbocharger to the exhaust manifold. The physics of a turbo are simple but devastating. It is basically an air pump powered by waste exhaust gases. It takes the dead energy leaving the engine, uses it to spin a turbine at over 100,000 revolutions per minute, and forces highly compressed oxygen back into the cylinders. More oxygen means the engine can burn much more fuel in a fraction of a second. The result was terrifying. The road-going versions of the Quattro produced around 200 horsepower, but the race-tuned monsters quickly exceeded 500 horsepower. Combined with the absolute, unbreakable grip of the all-wheel drive system, this turbocharged 5-cylinder engine turned the Audi from a clever engineering experiment into a weapon of mass destruction on the rally stages. In 1982, the FIA introduced Group B rally racing. The rules were simple. There were almost no rules. Engineers were given a blank canvas, leading to an arms race of unlimited turbo boost and exotic materials. Audi unleashed the Sport Quattro S1, a shortened, widened, and steroid-injected version of their original car. With the turbocharger pushed to the absolute limit, the 5-cylinder engine generated over 500 horsepower. But power is nothing without traction. While rivals built mid-engined, tube frame prototypes from scratch to achieve perfect balance, Audi stubbornly stuck to their production-based, front-engine, hollow-shaft philosophy. The result was a brutal, nose-heavy monster that required superhuman strength and absolute madness to tame. Driving this machine was a battle against turbo lag. In early turbocharged cars, when you lifted off the gas to brake for a corner, the exhaust pressure dropped and the massive turbo stopped spinning. When you pressed the gas again, you had to wait agonizing seconds for the power to return. To cheat this physics, Audi drivers perfected the art of left-foot braking. Approaching a corner, they kept their right foot pinned to the floor on the accelerator to keep the exhaust gases flowing and the turbo spinning at maximum pressure. Simultaneously, they used their left foot to smash the brake pedal, forcing the car to slow down while the engine was still trying to tear the tires apart. It was a violent mechanical contradiction, fighting the brakes with the engine just to keep the turbocharger alive. But the ultimate limit of Group B wasn't mechanical. It was biological. Thanks to the Quattro all-wheel drive system, these cars were accelerating from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 2.5 seconds on loose dirt. Faster than Formula One cars of that era could do on dry asphalt. The human brain evolved to process visual information at running speed, not at 200 kilometers per hour through a dense, narrow forest. Drivers experienced severe tunnel vision. Trees blurred into a solid green wall. The reaction time required to correct a high-speed slide became smaller than the physical time it took for a nerve impulse to travel from the driver's eye to their hands. Group B cars had literally outgrown the human nervous system. Audi proved that all-wheel drive was the absolute weapon, but the weapon had become too fast for the human mind to control. Subscribe, hit the like button, and let's get back to the video. When Group B died, Audi took their monster to the United States, to the legendary Pikes Peak International Hill Climb, the race to the clouds. This was the ultimate test of endurance and physics. The finish line sits at 4,300 meters above sea level. At this altitude, the air is 40% thinner than at the start. This creates a massive problem for internal combustion engines. A motor is essentially a giant air pump. Without oxygen, it cannot burn fuel. As the car climbed, the engine began to suffocate, losing power with every meter of elevation. To fight the physics of thin air, Audi engineers had to push their turbocharging technology to a level never seen before, forcing the dying atmosphere into the cylinders with brutal pressure. But altitude doesn't just affect the engine, it affects handling. In thin air, traditional spoilers lose their effectiveness because there are fewer air molecules to push against the car. Audi's solution was to turn the Sport Quattro into an aerodynamic brick. They fitted the car with a front spoiler so large it looked like a snowplow, and a rear wing that resembled an inverted airplane wing. The physics were simple. Use the invisible hand of the wind to crush the car into the gravel. This created massive downforce, allowing the Audi to take hairpins at speeds that defied common sense. Even as the engine lost raw power due to the altitude, the aerodynamics allowed the driver to carry more speed through the corners. It was a perfect balance between the lack of air and the mastery of its flow. In 1987, legendary driver Walter Röhrl strapped into the 600 horsepower Sport Quattro S1E2. The road was still unpaved, pure loose gravel with 1,000-meter drops and no guardrails. It was a dance on the edge of a jagged knife. Röhrl used every bit of the Quattro's traction and the car's brutal aerodynamics to destroy the record. He became the first person in history to break the sub-11-minute barrier at Pikes Peak. It was total domination. Audi had proved that their physics-based approach worked everywhere, from the forests of Europe to the highest peaks of America. The Quattro wasn't just a rally car anymore. It was a global legend. But this victory was so overwhelming that the racing world began to fear Audi. In 1988, Audi decided to conquer American asphalt. They entered the Trans Am series with the Audi 200 Quattro. To the Americans, it looked like a joke. They were used to massive 5-liter V8 monsters with huge rear tires. The Audi had a tiny 2.1-liter engine and looked like a family sedan. It was David versus Goliath. But the Americans forgot the physics of cornering. While the V8 cars struggled to put their power down, sliding and burning their rear tires, the Audi used its all-wheel drive system to accelerate out of corners with surgical precision. It didn't matter how much power the Americans had on the straights, the Audi won the race in the corners. By the end of the season, Audi had won 8 out of 13 races and took the championship. The German sedan had humiliated the American legends. After being effectively pushed out of Trans Am, Audi moved to the even faster IMSA GTO series. They built the most extreme Quattro ever, the Audi 90 GTO. This was a 720 horsepower monster wrapped in a wide-body silhouette. Here, the physics of all-wheel drive reached its peak. While rivals like Mercury and Chevrolet used space-frame chassis and rear-wheel drive, Audi's evolution of the hollow shaft and central differential provided an unfair advantage. On rainy days, the gap was embarrassing. The Audi was seconds faster per lap than anything else on the track. It was so superior that it didn't just win, it dominated the entire field. The Quattro system had proven that even on a perfectly flat, dry racetrack, four-wheel drive was the absolute weapon of physics. The success was too great. The American organizers realized that if Audi kept racing, no one else would bother to show up. The physics of Quattro had effectively killed the competition. In a desperate move to save the show, the rules were changed. All-wheel drive was officially banned. Audi was told their technology was too good for the sport. It was a bitter victory. Audi left American circuit racing not because they lost, but because they were so fast that the rules couldn't contain them. But this forced the engineers to look back at the car's structure itself. If they couldn't use 4WD to win on the track anymore, they would use a new material to win on the scales. In the world of high-performance engineering, weight is the ultimate enemy. Every extra kilogram requires more energy to move, more force to stop, and more grip to turn. By the early 90s, cars were becoming dangerously heavy due to safety requirements and complex electronics. Traditional steel was strong, but it was heavy and surprisingly flexible. Under high-speed cornering, a steel frame actually twists and bends, destroying the car's precision. This is called a loss of torsional rigidity. Audi realized that to evolve, they had to abandon a century of steel manufacturing. They needed a material that was light like a feather, but stiff like a diamond. They turned to aluminum. The result was the Audi space frame, or ASF. This wasn't just a car body made of aluminum. It was a completely new way of thinking about structure. Instead of heavy stamped sheets of metal, Audi used a high-tech combination of extruded sections and complex vacuum die-cast nodes. Think of it as a high-tech skeleton where every joint is optimized for maximum strength with minimum mass. This aluminum frame was 40% lighter than a steel equivalent, but significantly stiffer. The physics were game-changing. By reducing the mass of the shell, engineers could improve acceleration and braking without touching the engine. It was the first time a mass-production luxury flagship, the Audi A8, was built entirely from this space-age material. The real benefit of ASF was felt in the corners. Physics dictates that the heavier an object is, the more it wants to continue moving in a straight line. This is called centrifugal inertia. By cutting hundreds of kilograms from the car, Audi reduced the force trying to push the vehicle off the road in a turn. The car became more agile, more responsive, and more efficient. Furthermore, using aluminum for suspension components reduced unsprung mass, allowing the wheels to react to bumps in the road with lightning speed. Audi had won the battle against inertia. They proved that true luxury and performance weren't just about adding more power, but about the elegant physics of lightness. The aluminum revolution had arrived, and the world of luxury cars would never be the same. In 2006, Audi entered the 24 Hours of Le Mans with a machine that defied all racing logic, the R10 TDI. It was powered by a massive 5.5-liter twin-turbo V12 diesel engine. In the world of high-speed racing, diesel was considered slow and heavy. But Audi understood the physics of endurance. Unlike gasoline engines that rely on high RPMs to generate power, a diesel engine relies on the physics of torque. Because diesel fuel is more energy-dense and burns via high-pressure compression ignition, it produces a massive, relentless downward force on the pistons. This torque allowed the Audi to accelerate out of corners with a violence that gasoline rivals couldn't match, all while using significantly less fuel. The true secret weapon wasn't just speed, it was the physics of efficiency. Because the diesel engine was so fuel efficient, the R10 TDI could stay on the track for much longer periods than its gasoline competitors. In a 24-hour race, every second spent in the pits is a second lost. By requiring fewer pit stops for refueling, the Audi effectively gained several free laps over the course of the race. It was a victory of mathematics. While the gasoline cars were constantly stopping to drink, the Audi kept running, silent and unstoppable. The engine was so quiet that drivers reported they could hear the wind whistling and the tires screaming over the sound of the motor. It was a haunting clinical execution of efficiency. The Audi R10 TDI won Le Mans on its very first attempt, becoming the first diesel-powered car in history to take the overall victory. It didn't just win, it dominated for years, winning 5 consecutive titles. Audi had changed the world's perception of diesel forever. They proved that with the right engineering and a deep understanding of thermodynamics, you could turn a truck engine into a world-class athlete. This technology immediately trickled down to Audi's road cars, making TDI a symbol of massive torque and long-distance cruising. But as the world moved toward a new era, Audi realized that the next frontier of physics wasn't in fuel. It was in light. In endurance racing, night is the most dangerous opponent. If you cannot see the corner, you cannot take it at maximum speed. For decades, drivers were limited by the physics of halogen and xenon bulbs. These lights were warm, scattered, and had a short throw. At 300 kilometers per hour, a driver's reaction distance is longer than the reach of traditional headlights. You are effectively driving into a black hole. Audi realized that to win, they had to master the photon. They began a revolution in lighting, moving from heavy gas discharge bulbs to light-emitting diodes, or LEDs. Unlike traditional bulbs, LEDs produce a cold white light that is much closer to natural daylight, reducing eye fatigue and allowing the brain to process obstacles much faster. The real breakthrough came with matrix LED technology. Audi turned the headlight into a computer. Instead of one single bulb, they used a grid of dozens of individual LEDs. Controlled by a high-speed camera and a processor, these LEDs can be turned off or dimmed individually in milliseconds. The physics are brilliant. You can drive with high beams on all the time, providing maximum visibility while the computer cuts out a precise shadow around oncoming vehicles to avoid blinding other drivers. It is a digital manipulation of shadows and light. For the driver, the road is always bright. For everyone else, the Audi is a ghost. Light became an active safety system, constantly calculating and reshaping itself based on the environment. But Audi didn't stop at LEDs. They looked toward the physics of the laser. In the Audi R18 Le Mans prototype, they introduced laser light. By firing blue laser beams into a tiny phosphorus crystal, they created a light that is 10 times more intense than a standard LED. The result is a beam that can reach over 600 meters, nearly twice the distance of any other headlight. It allows a driver to see an obstacle 6 seconds before they reach it at high speed. It is the ultimate evolution of photonics in the automotive world. From the mud of rally stages to the high-tech lasers of Le Mans, Audi proved that whoever controls the light controls the race. For decades, the kings of the supercar world, Ferrari, Lamborghini, and McLaren, insisted that rear-wheel drive was the only way to experience true performance. But as engine power exceeded 700, 800, and 1,000 horsepower, they hit the same wall of physics that Audi found in 1977. Two tires simply cannot handle that much energy. Today, almost every record-breaking hypercar, from the Bugatti Chiron to the latest Lamborghinis, relies on the all-wheel drive philosophy pioneered by the Quattro. Audi didn't just build a fast car, they wrote the global blueprint for how modern performance is delivered to the asphalt. The tractor maker's idea became the gold standard for the elite. The physics of Quattro are now entering their most advanced stage, the electric revolution. In the past, power distribution was limited by the speed of mechanical gears and shafts. Today, In the Audi e-tron, the hollow shaft has been replaced by electric motors that can adjust the torque to each individual wheel in milliseconds. This is the ultimate torque vectoring. By using software to control physics, the car can now rotate itself through a corner with a level of precision that Jörg Benzinger could only dream of. The mechanical soul of the 80s has been upgraded into a digital brain. But the goal remains exactly the same: absolute mastery over the friction between rubber and road. Audi's journey from a humble military Jeep to a global engineering titan is a story of one simple philosophy: Vorsprung durch Technik, advancement through technology. They prove that speed isn't just about the size of the engine, but about the intelligence of how that power is used. By mastering the physics of grip, materials, and light, Audi didn't just build cars. They pushed the boundaries of what is possible on four wheels. In the end, the absolute weapon wasn't a piece of metal. It was the restless human mind constantly seeking to outsmart the laws of nature. This is the legacy of Audi. This is the science of the four rings.